Hmm.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm exhausted, but I'm here.
Well, thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
I was wondering if you could resend me the minutes from May 23rd. I cannot get my phone to open that file for some reason.
I just resent it. When I sent it, it also had the agenda for June and a poll
Okay.
in it. So I may have to send it separately if you can't open the email I resent.
Oh, here it is.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Ah, hopefully it lets me download it. I don't know why it's not letting me download it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have the Microsoft Office and I've been using that poll feature to get folks to RSVP for the meeting. And I think you've consistently had a problem with that poll on your phone. Is that right?
It won't let me open these minutes. I don't know why. I was able to open the ones from June, but for some reason it's not a
Okay.
PDF. Maybe that's why.
Oh, yeah, it's a Word document.
But I don't understand because I have Office Suite in my phone. So I don't understand why. It still should download it. It's just not downloading.
That's weird. Let me see. It's a couple pages. So do you want me to try to save it as a PDF and send it?
That would be good.
Okay,
Thank you. Sorry about that.
it's
I usually
okay.
don't have trouble.
Well, computers are mysterious things.
Hello,
At least,
Steve.
at least to me, they are.
Hi, Tracy. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Tired, just like you.
Yeah, the heat has been, even though I have air conditioning, it's for some reason still been a thing.
Yeah, it does take a lot out of you, especially if you can't sleep well.
Okay, apparently it's a my phone issue and not. So weird though, I downloaded the June minutes just a few minutes ago, so. Let me see if it did.
Hmm.
I had 10 files. No, it didn't download it.
Hi, Chris.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, I'm pretty good. Enjoying this nice weather. How about you?
Right. Oh, good, good. Yeah, it's beautiful out. A little warm, but really nice.
Yeah. Tomorrow going to be warmer, but I have to work down at the VA in the air conditioning, so I'll be all right.
It's a good day for it. Yeah.
The days that we had all that smoke from the fires, I was really glad I was working down there too. So,
Oh, yeah. I heard that there might be more smoke headed our way. Somebody was talking about that at work.
maybe fires are still going, so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we had to cancel one of our rowing nights because the weather was the air quality was so bad. I go
Do you-
down and row with the Western Reserve Rowing Association, just an amateur out on the water, but
I did that years ago before they became very organized, when we rode for the bars, like softball teams. I did it
Yeah.
then. Yeah.
Oh,
so,
nice.
yeah.
Yeah, you still have to recruit somebody to buy your t-shirts. But I think we had a company called ePallet buy our shirts this year. So.
Yeah.
Hi, Ami. How are you?
I'm
Yeah.
doing okay. Just
Good.
going straight from one Zoom into another. I was in my conflict resolution class Zoom for the capstone project and getting lots of practice.
Great. That's good stuff.
With the transition that Tri-C is going through, since we don't have quorum yet, I'll just chat. The Tri-C just got a new Cuyahoga Community College for Steve, if he has no idea what I'm talking about. I've talked him up there a bit too, so they could really use his services. But they have a new campus-wide president or system-wide president that's trying to redo things. The West Shore campus, their president's only been there, I think, a year and a half at this point. The head of the conflict resolution department got promoted to interim dean at Metro campus and has apparently been dropping some balls for the program, and that's resulting in a lot of conflict that needs addressing. And wow, it's been a lot. And also some of my children are off caring for a new Lakewoodite that is a wheelchair user that moved into Center North this weekend. His home health care person is a single parent. And so my kids are watching her kids over at the library so she can go take care of them at Center North, where the AC and elevators are down. So all kinds of conflict resolution practice going on. Some of it
Oh, I
related to-
hadn't heard the elevators were down there. I had heard about the AC being down, but not the elevators. Are they all down or some of them down?
The freight elevator is the only one that's working.
Oh,
And this person the new resident is a wheelchair user that has an 8th floor apartment. So that's a bit of a problem.
have they reported it to property
yeah.
management?
Oh yeah. He says that the elevator was being worked on earlier he noticed, but last I heard it's still down and he says it's okay as long as the freight elevator is working, but it makes me really nervous because he's not ambulatory at all.
Yeah.
I don't think he can he's got cerebral palsy. I don't think he can butt scoot down the 8 flights of stairs safely.
Yeah,
And his big power wheelchair is not going to be getting down with anything other than an elevator. So I'm concerned about him. And if I'm a little distracted, it's my thinking about my friend.
yeah, that's a big concern for sure.
And I'm
You know,
absolutely trying to recruit him to whatever the follow on to this is. You know, if we
Yeah.
have like a standing board of disability advisory or something,
yeah.
this guy, he's amazing.
Oh, great. Yeah, that sounds real good. Yeah, I'll be curious to see, I think it's great. The recommendation is in the transition plan and it'll be fun to see what the next iteration is like. So,
Michelle, it looks like we do technically have quorum. If you want to get started.
okay, great. I know Christina Taman let me know she was going to be about 15 minutes late and Andy said he would be a few minutes late, but since we have quorum, I think you are correct. Let's get this ball rolling.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order. We have Chris Cowan present. And we have Ami present, co-chair. And we have Tom. Hello, Tom. Tom McGraw present.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
And myself, Tracy Greenberg. And I couldn't get the minutes from May. That was my own technical issue, but I was able to review the minutes for June. So are we able to, again, postpone their minutes approval for May and just go ahead with the June ones? Would that be okay with everyone?
It's fine with me. I had noticed 2 typos on the ones from May. Which I'll forward on to Michelle in case she still missed those. And I had a question about the May ones. I'm looking at my notes to myself on my phone. Which I can, does anybody mind if I just get clarification on that now, or it might need to wait for Andy? I'm not even sure. It's just.
No,
an
you can go ahead and do that
operations question.
now.
Okay, it's regarding when the draft is provided to see which part is my notes. Okay, clarification, on the guidance document will also be provided to help city staff and task force members in their review. Once city staff determines the rough draft is ready, the document must be made available for public comment by placing in public places that are open past business hours, as well as making the document available in accessible PDF. And I wanted a clarification. Do we as the task force get veto power if we don't feel it's ready for public view yet as a draft? And does the public review happen before city council gets it or simultaneously with council getting it so that their process is part of the public comment period?
Okay, yeah, those
Public
questions.
comment periods.
Save
Basically.
those questions for the end. I thought you had a question about the actual minutes. So save those questions for the end.
I couldn't
and
remember
we
if it had actually been clarified in the meeting in May, since.
Yeah, just save that for the end. We're just focused on minutes approval, which obviously we're not gonna be able to do that for that.
Those
for
were the only
May,
issues
but-
I had with the May minutes, so in case
Okay.
anybody else had similar commentary that we can take into consideration.
We'll go ahead and, did everybody review the minutes for June? And if you did, are we able to take a vote to approve those minutes right now?
I did review them. Chris, Tom, did you get to review them?
Yes, I reviewed them.
Okay. Motion to approve the minutes for June?
Tom just unmuted.
Yeah,
Tom,
I'll motion to approve.
okay, same.
I'll second it.
I saw no issues in them.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Okay. June minutes approved. Let's go ahead and welcome Andy. Hello. And welcome Steve. And Steve is going to present for us. And at the end, we will have time for comments and questions. And if you do come up with any questions during the presentation, just put them in the chat. And we'll kind of go with what we did last time, where if he's able to address that at the moment, he will. If not, he'll save it for the end. So hello, Steve, you're on.
All right, a lot of pressure there. All right, so as everyone's aware, we delivered after the last meeting, or actually we delivered before the last meeting, and discussed the chapters 1, 2, 7, and 8, which I have received a handful of comments from individuals on the task force in regards to. I appreciate the time that many of you spent going through it in great detail. So thus far, chapters 1, 2, 7, and 8 have been delivered and essentially reviewed, and the requested deadline for review and comments has passed, but that really never will end. Chapter 3, which is the pedestrian signals and on-street parking, is very nearly done. I hope to have that done by the end of this week and send that out. Chapter 4, which is the sidewalks, has been sent out to Michelle for distribution, and I see that that went out today. Chapter 5, which is curb ramps, has also been delivered to Michelle, and I anticipate will be sent out for review and comment by the task force imminently. And then that leaves only chapter 6, which is the transition plan summarizing all of the other chapters, as well as where we'll go from here and the formal process for adoption and what happens after adoption. So as we talk tonight about some of the comments on chapters 1, 2, 7, and 8, I wanted to maybe just outline a few, I guess I call them rules of engagement, so we can all understand what's happened and what will happen with your comments, especially as it relates to the more difficult comments to address, where I can't just say, oh yeah, that's a great comment, I'm going to add that. There were a number of those, and I have made those changes, and I'll pull my share screen up and I'll show you some of the changes that we've already made and discuss some of the things that I need to make, but haven't had a chance to do so yet. But there are also a number of very detailed comments and questions related to certain portions of chapters 1, 2, 7, and 8, primarily chapter 2, which was the review of all of the policies, procedures, and practices at the city. That's going to need a little deeper dive and smaller group discussions to come to a consensus that we would bring to the larger group at a future meeting or via email to ensure everyone is on board with that. I did want everyone to keep in mind that even though we are reviewing the document in pieces, this internal review draft will be assembled in a complete document that includes all of the appendices with tables and figures and whatnot that describes the review for on-street parking and the other right-of-way items that we did the analysis for, as well as the detailed spreadsheets of the parks and buildings. So there will be an opportunity as we wade through the comments of individual chapters to again be able to have an opportunity to revisit and review the ways that we have addressed some of those things when the entire document goes out again. I know Ami had just mentioned what's the process that we're going to be going through for completion of this document in this project. And what we have typically done and what ADA requires is that the document go out for public review and comment, and that would happen before final adoptions. City Council really cannot adopt a document that has not gone through the required public review and input opportunity that's required by ADA. So the version that we're working on right now, which I call the internal review draft, which is just strictly an internal document. Obviously, City Council, Mayor, and other elected leaders have an opportunity to review that if they so choose. Most of them don't, realizing that this is a planning document, not a design document, but it has a lot of information in it that they will hear about when we present to them. Once the internal draft version has been completed, and everyone on the task force is, or at least a majority of the task force believes it's ready to go out to the public, notwithstanding that it still may have some little gaps or holes that we need to get public input on to fill. That's when we would prepare the next version, which is that public review version. As Ami pointed out, that document is going to be distributed, and information about the locations and the time period within which it is available for public review and comment will be distributed through notices on the webpage, social media pages, letters to advocacy groups, any way that we can get the word out that this document is there for public review and comment, as well as having an electronic copy placed on the website with direct links from social media pages, and hard copies placed at numerous locations throughout the city, several of which, at least one of which, but multiple is desirable, that would be open outside of normal business hours to afford individuals the opportunity that work the 9 to 5 job to review a hard copy if they so choose to do that in the evenings or on a weekend. So the community centers, the libraries and whatnot are typical places that we have had clients place the document in hard copy for public review. So that the length of that document, public review period, the locations, all those things are still part of some of the holes that we need to fill as we go through the final version of this internal review draft. And I'll introduce some of those options and whatnot individually with Michelle, and we'll bring those to the entire task force at a later meeting. So we'll have an opportunity to discuss. I always recommend a minimum of 2 weeks for a public review time period. 4 weeks is better. But obviously you can keep it out there as long as you want. It just delays things. And typically we have found through computer hits and whatnot, we don't get a lot of computer hits or visits to libraries or checking it out at community centers. I think that will probably be a little bit different in Lakewood, but notwithstanding that fact, we tend to still see quite a dip in the number of reviews and hits in most instances within the first couple of weeks of when a document or other type of advertisement is done for something like this. So like I said, 2 weeks is usually adequate. 4 weeks is better. Anything longer than 4 weeks, you typically will not see a significant increase in the number of people that will review and participate. Michelle, did we get any comments back from the 60 or 70 advocacy groups that we sent letters to at the self-evaluation phase?
No, Steve, I think I may have gotten one thank you back on an email, but I didn't receive any comment.
Okay, and that's pretty typical. Many times the local ADA center, which in your case is the Great Lakes ADA Center in Chicago, they will oftentimes send an automated response letter that thank you and wada and describes what they are, and they can't give legal advice and all this other standard language, which really isn't very helpful, but they do at least acknowledge receipt. So and that's that's right up with what we see on every other place that I've done this type of activities. And I've done this work in Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Tennessee, a number of states, and soon to be Florida. But we just don't see a lot of outrage and participation simply because it's not a controversial subject, although certainly hits the home to many of the individuals, especially on the task force and others in the community. it is a very important planning document. So with that, I wanted to get back to some of the comments. Many of the comments were quite detailed. Again, it was very obvious that several of you took a lot of time to go through the document. As you would expect, the engineers focused on the engineering things, the architects focused on the architectural things, and whatnot. So, and that's really not unusual. I mean, we see that in a number of different types of documents, even if we have multidisciplinary projects like a casino or something like that. People that provide comment on design plans or specifications for buildings really focus on the area of their special interest or areas of expertise or experience. So that's not uncommon, and was definitely what we saw here. I also wanted to make sure that everyone is aware, as you see some of the comments that I'll go through here that have been addressed. You will probably notice some of your comments have not been addressed yet. I will respond directly to everyone that sent me comments with my comments on your comments to let you know what the disposition is. The disposition will simply be, hey, great suggestion. I made that change. Sorry about the typo. Sorry for not catching that old client name in there, which I think I've vetted all of those now. But there are some comments or suggestions that were made for the document that may not be pertinent to this type of document. It just goes into too much detail, or it suggests a policy change that I think needs to go above the pay grade of most people on this call. New ordinances, new trainings, new things like that may be things that we can recommend, but in the context of how some of the comments were provided, I think we need to be sure to tread a little lighter there. So I will respond to all the people that provided me with comments, either directly or through Michelle, with my thoughts and immediate action on those, and recognize that some of the comments that have not been addressed yet will be in some way, shape, or form in all likelihood. But there are also some comments that just wade a little bit deeper into the implementation and some of the other things, or suggest much more detailed review than the scope of this project typically would do, and was not provided for the city of Lakewood.
Real quick, I just want to acknowledge that Christina has joined us. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. So we're not starting over for Christina, but we'll catch her up later. One thing I did want to point out, and I will work directly with Michelle on this because it's really more pertinent to things that we found or were provided. But based on some of the comments, it seems as though there may be some items that were not provided or we didn't find for our review, or there's a misunderstanding on behalf of the person making a comment about what an ordinance does and does not include within the language. So I'll work directly with that. And I think it's probably going to be something that if you made a comment about those types of things, and I say to you, I'm dealing with that at the city staff level, when you get the full version of the document and do your review of that final draft of the internal review version, please make sure that your comment has been addressed in some way, shape, or form. I've gone into a little bit of detail about what is next, so I'm not going to really go a lot into that, but keep in mind as I go through the version I'm going to share here with the share screen, there are still things that are highlighted in green and blue that tells me that those are things that I either need more information on or we need to discuss at some point, not tonight, because we're not going to have time tonight to do that. Things such as, sorry about that, things such as where we're going to put the document and what are the dates of the time for the public review and all that other stuff. So I'm going to share my screen now, and all right. Hopefully you all see the now July version of the draft internal review version of the transition plan. I'm just going to kind of scroll through here real quickly and stop on a few items that I think we need to discuss, some things that I have already changed. And then I will go to some of the comments and address them for the group, but I will not be putting those up on the share screen to maintain at least a little bit of mystery as to where those comments came from, but they are certainly pertinent, and I will not be able to discuss all of them. So I think probably one of the first comments that I wanted to address is I got comments from more than one person about this photo, which is just a generic photo. I never really thought much of it. I actually wasn't the one that started using it, but I thought it was a good photo because it shows one of the most basic abilities that we allow people with the providing of a clear space by allowing an individual that is non-ambulatory and cannot offload to a bench to sit shoulder to shoulder. There was concern about a couple of different things, one being an elderly person, one being an elderly disabled person, one being white. I mean, there was a lot of I think enough disdain for this photo that I am going to change it out and put something much more generic that includes probably no human beings in the photo, but is still relevant to accessibility. So when you see the next version of that, and I may bounce some of the potentials off of a couple of people that made comments about the photo to see, maybe take a little poll of what you want. But again, this is a decorative photo. It has no other significance, but I did want to bring that up because of all the photos in the entire document, this is the one that sparked the most angst, I guess, among a couple of the members. So I did want to at least put that out there. You can see in the overview here, one of the comments I got from multiple people was a little bit more detail about the task force and the fact that the city did actually prepare a transition plan that was found after we started this process that was dated in 1992. So you can see in the track changes version of this document, I have added a little blurb about the fact that the city of Lakewood had prepared an ADA transition plan in 1992 that was found after we started this project, and some of the processes throughout there. And that we also included some information about the residents, particularly disabled residents, expressing concern about accessibility issues, and that the city utilized that process to form the transition plan task force and what they were responsible for with developing the RFP and a number of other things. So I will keep the track changes on and send a version of this document out again after I get chapters 3 and 6 delivered, just so that it doesn't slow me down. But I have taken to account some of those things and given the task force the credit that they are due for many of the things that have gotten us to where we are right now. Some things are just very correct. I wanted to talk a little bit about the survey. Some of the comments in the in regards throughout the whole process, actually, in regards to the survey, are directly in relation to how the survey was done and how we were going to utilize the survey. And I don't recall if I've gone into detail about what we have done and what we use the survey for, but it's not what many surveys would typically do to obtain detailed information. One of the difficulties you have with online surveys is you essentially exclude anyone that does not have a computer or online access or is computer illiterate. If we were doing a master plan or something like that within the community, you would be doing many open houses and other types of things in conjunction with this. I tend to try to utilize this to give me a little more background about the community, the makeup of people that are active in the community. I have not gone into detail about, even though all the responses to the survey are anonymous, I can go through the individual responses to determine whether, for example, a person, a number 2 that checked yes, they or a family member has the disability, to see if they have responded and how they have responded in comparison to people that check no, because we have about a 50-50 split. While that might be valuable information in some cases, I'd be surprised if it gave us anything that would be too surprising here. People with disabilities obviously are going to note having difficulties and issues with access, and people that are not disabled or don't have a family member with a disability don't know what difficulties people might have accessing city facilities or programs. So I just wanted to ensure that your comments about the survey and how it was done are certainly not lost, and has made me rethink how I will do the next ones on future projects, and maybe even reach out to some of you for assistance and how you think that we can make this better and more valuable. But for what it does and what it has always done on other projects, I think your survey did for us as well, is it did provide opportunities for people to give comments, to confirm some of the things that we found in our self-evaluation of the different facilities and programs, gave us a lot of information about non-city stuff, which is very common, and also some interesting things that I would not have known otherwise, and maybe you wouldn't even know otherwise if you go through these in detail. And if you recall all the extra comments that we got, I've highlighted anything that I think is, that I personally think is relevant in yellow. If there's something that anyone else thinks is relevant, please let me know. But things talking about parking for the non-disabled is a problem, and they can only imagine how difficult it is for people with disability, and many other things related to some of those other things. But and we did also, again, just get some just general comments that I thought were very, very pertinent and helpful. And in fact, some of the things are very much in process. Talking about the new pool design, having adequate ADA entry into the main pool. I've been working with the city to address some of the issues there and doing plan reviews and whatnot. So some very good information there. Ami, I think in the translation, Ami, for some of the things that you were looking at, many of the pictures flipped to their original orientation that the person in the field took the photo. So like this picture on page chapter 2 heading is actually oriented properly. It's standing at the bottom of the ramp at the courthouse side, west side of the building, looking up the ramp. And many of the other photos were like that. So to adjust, maybe the only comments I'll address for anyone specifically, Ami was provided with a Word version that she converted to a reading program that she has on her phone to be able to provide comment, and it appears as though it flipped many of the photographs. So I got a lot of, your photos are rotated 90 degrees, but they weren't. So we'll make sure that that's corrected as much as we can. Michelle provided additional information about the assistive listening devices and the systems that are in place, particularly at the auditorium. Those of you who don't know, the auditorium is considered a assembly area and is required, because it has audio amplification, is required to have a assistive listening system and listening devices for people with hearing loss that can still hear but need to be able to control the volume. And there's other technologies, and I guess I'll throw this out also, because Ami was very thorough in her review and comment, especially on new technologies that I am not all that familiar with and is a moving target. Actually, I think I just sent a email out to the group about the Department of Justice actually coming out with a rule that they're advancing on websites for Title II entities, which is the first time that they're advancing rulemaking. And if you're not familiar with the process, once a federal agency goes through rulemaking and it is those standards or guidelines are adopted by any federal agency, it then becomes an enforceable standard. So once it goes through all the rulemaking and they tweak whatever they need to do, I would suspect that at least one federal agency will adopt the website guidelines for Title II entities, and those will now be binding on all Title II entities. So good news for individuals that use screen reading programs and other technological advances to surf the internet and get information from websites of Title II entities and soon to be Title III entities as well. There's a lot of case law out there right now that unfortunately is being made. So anyways, back to the auditorium. So there are 4 listening devices available, which is short of based on the room capacity. And we're still waiting to hear back whether or not the courtroom, Michelle is still tracking that down for me, whether or not the courtroom has any. I don't believe it does, but those are fortunately a fairly easy thing. And there are other technology advancements, things that I think AMI would be more than happy to help identify what can be done short of an expensive change to your audio system. Michelle, the street festival at Detroit Avenue in Warren, where they close a section of Detroit, is that any special group? Who sponsors that?
Steve, are you talking about the meltdown? We do a few where we close the street. And most of our events are either Lakewood Alive or like the Art Fest, I think we do. That goes through our special events coordinator.
Mhm. Okay, all right, I'll contact you directly then to see that, because it's important, and I think it was even noted in one of the comments that there are some festivals where the streets are shut down and they don't provide alternative accessible parking. When you shut the street down, all the on-street parking that's accessible is no longer accessible. So those are very important things to take into consideration. And if you have a special event coordinator, they should have some type of a checklist to ensure that those even temporary accessible parking spaces or whatnot are provided if any are lost. A great suggestion, of course, from an architect about ensuring that one staff person has the ICC accessibility inspector and plans examiner certification that's available. At the training that we did in June, was it June? Yeah, June. We had training sessions for plan reviewers and building inspectors. And you are fortunate that you do have at least one person that is very well versed in the accessibility code for the building code. I don't know that he's a certified person, but that certainly would not be a bad thing to consider. There was also a notation made about the need to ensure relative to your outdoor dining. I did address the clear width that's required in the ordinance, and that you exceed the requirement of ProWag, but comment was also provided that a couple other things to ensure is that the dining areas are outside of the landings and turning spaces of curb ramps, and that if there are any umbrellas or other types of objects within the right of way for outdoor dining, that they are not protruding objects or a hazard of any kind. So I did add that. Chapter 2, 3. I have in the document a number of places, some figures that show the title page of some publications. And I know that the screen reading programs have a problem reading them because they're not in proper reading order. And even though they have alt text on them, and the link that you can get it, it may be something that I have to provide a special version of, for the public review version, that, and I'll run, I mean, do you run NDVA at all?
Not generally. I'm usually trying to process these long documents on mobile, and my mobile app that I use, Moonreader, which is just a general mainstream ebook reader, has text to speech.
Okay,
Usually if there's a alt text, it'll catch it and read out the alt text for me too.
okay,
But
all right.
it was
It might,
skipping straight over images.
yeah, it might be because it's a grouped image, and it's got multiple alt text. There's alt text on that, and as well as the larger thing. So I'll work through that with whatever process I have, and I may contact you to see what I need to do to make it accessible for your reading program. Oh, well, I mean, that's it for chapter 2. There were other comments that were provided, as I mentioned earlier, that I think we need to go and do a little bit deeper dive on, individually with the person making the comment, as well as I'll work with Michelle where it needs to be done. We don't have nearly enough time to go through all of those types of comments. One person did point out, and I corrected the fact that Human Services Department did move to Cove from their address on Madison Avenue, but that happened well after we started the project. So that's why I just forgot to change it. But many of the smaller operations for Human Services for both early childhood as well as senior programs all moved to Cove, and several facilities have changed. Well, here you get your first peek at chapter 3. It's coming along. Again, that's pedestrian signals and pedestrian push buttons, or non-street parking, I'm sorry. Chapter 4 is the sidewalk inventory, which you should have in your hands. I believe Michelle sent that out earlier today, actually, to everyone. As you review chapter 4, I already have gotten some input on the prioritization. I know that the figure 4.1, which shows the prioritization of the different sidewalk segments, that is open to interpretation, and those are my suggestions. But if we are going to go into a deep dive on those and change those for various reasons, we may need to do a separate meeting with a smaller group, non-quorum size, to do that, Chris or whomever. I mean, I don't want to get into the micro debate of debating all 150 miles of sidewalk, what should be high priority, what should be medium priority, what should be low priority for a planning document. But if you have questions about that as you go through your review, I'd be more than happy to tell you my justification. And there is discussion in chapter 3 about the different things that we have contextually to give barrier rankings. Includes both the deviation from the standard and the difficulty that it would present to a disabled pedestrian, as well as if it's close to a downtown, a shopping center, a school, churches, other types of assistive living communities or medical facilities or hospitals. We might bump it up a little bit higher, or if it's on the end of a cul-de-sac, we might lower it down based on the context of the location for those things. So enjoy chapter 4. Chapter 5 should be coming as well, which is the curb ramp inventory, which was very interesting because you have so many curb ramps. a lot with some of the same types of problems. And we'll work directly with the engineering department and staff there to get through that as you go into your implementation phase. Chapter 6 is our transition plan, which goes through all the summary of everything, which we're not ready to talk about. And then there were a number of comments in chapter 7 and 8, the ADA toolkit and definitions. Many of them were easily addressed. I did want to let everyone know that if you did have a comment on the ADA toolkit, if there are other resources that you have or know of, and would love to like to forward those to me, I would love to add them to my list. I continue to try to provide clients by region or areas of state or even by state resources that are close. Sources for sign language interpreters or other ways to accommodate effective communication would be greatly appreciated. I track down a lot on every types of project. And fortunately, Lakewood being a metropolitan area and close to the city of Cleveland, you've got great resources and a number of places that you can track those things down. When we get to definitions, there were a couple of comments that people had relative to some of the definitions, and I'll go back and look through every single one of them again. Most of these definitions are straight out of the ADA statute, the standards, or ADA.gov or the Access Board websites. And I will admit, and I'm sure they will admit too, that some of their documents and language is quite outdated. Many of their publications are still up from the early 2000s that need to be updated, and they're certainly getting around to it. But one of the comments was related specifically to service animals, and the definition of service animal, pretty much anywhere you look, references strictly dogs. And I am aware, as I know many of you are also, that miniature horses are also an approved type of service animal for people with allergies to dogs. They're fairly rare, but they are utilized. And the key thing between service animal and emotional support animals is pretty well documented. If you read any newspapers or get any articles on those types of things where people are trying to pass off not only pets, pet dogs that have no training and perform no service to an individual with a disability, but also other animals, cats, pigs, snakes, lizards, zebras, goats, all different types of things. And there's a pretty big discrepancy. Fortunately, there are revised documents, and I provide in the definition of service animal guidance from the ADA website at the ADA.gov for the U.S. Department of Justice related to service animals. And again, I will go through and any of the comments that were made relative to some of the verbiage throughout the document, not just the definitions, but the use of disabled person versus person with a disability types of things. I'll go through and make sure that all those are updated as we go through that process. So not a lot of great detail tonight, unfortunately, just because we'd have, we only have 60 minutes and there's only so much we can cover. But I did want everyone to be aware that I've received your comments. If you have more comments, please forward those, especially on the chapters 3, 4, 5, and 6 as they come out. And you will get another opportunity to review the entire document once I am done with chapter 6 and deliver that. So you'll have an opportunity to see how your comments were addressed as we work through those, and I will be sending you back a marked up version of your individual comments. So for the 5 or 6 people that gave me some type of comment, I will reply back and let you know the disposition for every single comment. So with that, I am going to stop sharing and let somebody else ask questions and talk because my throat is about done.
Thank you, Steve. if anybody has any questions at this point, I will defer to members of the task force to raise your hand if you have a comment or a question, or just to speak up. And please keep your comments to a limited time, be respectful of time because we're running out of time. Thank you.
I do see a couple questions in the chat. So one was with the curb ramp chapter, are we going to receive the detailed measurements? That wasn't sent initially.
Yes, I actually just sent those for review by a couple of people to start out with, but the final version of the internal review draft will include all the different tables, all the different data, all the different figures. Most of that information is not interesting to anybody but an engineer, but the detailed measurements, which I did go through, and I had to make some corrections and changes. You know, if you've ever worked with 5 or 6 different people doing work on a project, are better at collecting data than others. So I looked at every single curb ramp in great detail and altered the obviously incorrect information on a couple of things from the photographs. So
Steve, it looks like Chris has a follow-up question.
Yeah, I was not really interested in reading that information. I was interested that the city gets it so that they have the information to quickly determine what needs to be, since you took all that time to do it, like they should,
Yes.
know which ones need what,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah,
I don't want to
yeah.
read.
Oh, come on, you do.
No.
Yeah, the city at the final delivery, as we close out the project, DLZ will turn over anything and everything that the city wants. At a minimum, we will give Michelle the Word version of the transition plan so it can be easily updated as you go through your implementation, along with all of the other Excel spreadsheets. So the different departments that are making modifications can use that as a tool. All of the right-of-way data was collected in a GIS format, so we'll turn that also over to the city. So you'll have that, so you can utilize that in your GIS database, keeping in mind that some of the data that was field collected is not perfect. I've gone in and tried to fix what I can, but that is a major job in and of itself. But I think anything that is relevant to what needs to be fixed, the priority, and what are the main issues are pretty obvious. So yes, you'll get anything and everything you want. And if you don't want it now, you want it in 2 years, we'll have it in our archive somewhere.
Great. And then I did take some notes out of the chat. There were some questions about whether the parades were included, Meet the Chucks at Lakewood Park, as far as the ADA parking being removed, making sure that that's replaced. So I've taken notes on that.
I was just
So-
clarifying that you don't have to clarify that, any of that in the meeting. I put it in the chat so it can be addressed asynchronously.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
And
So I
there's
don't see any
actually
more
a
questions
there's
there.
actually a checklist for temporary events, Michelle, that I will send to you. That goes into some of the things that, planners for
Okay,
big
great.
events sometimes
Yeah.
get overwhelmed a little bit with all this going on, and some of the small things slip through. So that checklist for accessibility is a good thing to have. I'll make sure I send that to you.
Yeah, that'd
Steve,
be
could
great.
you please forward that to everyone? I would like to have that as well.
Yep.
I was
I'll
gonna say the
it.
same thing.
Yeah, it's actually a
Yeah.
link. So I'll send a link out to the same
Group.
email group in the morning that has the location for that checklist, and there will be others at that same location.
Great,
Great.
thank you. Okay, does anybody else have any questions or comments for Steve?
We actually
All
have
right.
9 minutes. We actually still have 9 minutes. So
We
one
might
thing I
actually get
would,
done early.
yeah, well, one thing I would like to throw out to the group, our next meeting would be August. Michelle, is that scheduled for the 29th or the 22nd?
That would
Because-
be the 22nd, it looks like.
Okay, all right, because the 22nd I am not available. So
Okay, so maybe I can send a poll out and see if the 29th would be acceptable. If we could make a quorum on the 29th, would you be available on the 29th?
I am, yeah, I've actually frozen that date because I thought that's when it would be, and then I looked and realized that there's 5 Tuesdays in August, so.
Yep, I can send that out. And we'll see how we go for the 29th.
Okay. And that actually would give us an extra week to review and provide comments as we're hopefully moving into the planning for the public outreach and the public review of the document.
All right, this is so great. We're coming in on the end of this long process. I could see like an end in sight, so I'm very happy. Thank you for this wonderful job that you've done,
Yeah.
Steve, and for addressing everyone's comments and for be willing to meet with everyone individually and just being available. And so really good at what you do. We appreciate you.
Well, it's really has been a lot of fun getting to know everyone and interact with everyone and getting to know your really neat little city or big city, I guess. And it's always a difficult thing when projects end, but I'm hoping that as you go through implementation and you're in a location that I'm in regularly, that I'll be able to follow. And I'm guessing Michelle's not going to be too shy about reaching out to me when she has questions or needs some advice. She's been very good at doing that throughout the project, and I certainly hope that continues to maintain that line of communication.
Absolutely.
Mhm. And you're far from over. You're not done. This is just
No,
this,
no, we
this
got
is
a
the
long way to
planning. This
go.
is the planning step.
And
Great.
The
I am absolutely
implementation is the hard part.
I am recommending you to institutions of higher education in the area because there's so much room for improvement on our college campuses. And I think that
Everywhere.
we're-
Absolutely, and other cities as well. I've been talking with the city of Cleveland, and they're starting their process. They just named their ADA coordinator, and I had a conversation. They asked me who Lakewood was working with, and I brought you up. So maybe you'll be sticking around in Northeast Ohio a little bit longer.
Yeah, we've been tracking Cleveland, and we certainly would be very interested. We're in the process of developing a very good working relationship with another large firm to help us with the right of way, since that's where I tend to struggle because I can't get people to do sidewalk stuff. I don't know why. Nobody wants to walk 150 miles of sidewalks, but so yeah, that would certainly be something that we would be interested in. And again, I appreciate everything. And even after this project ends, I hope that you all have my email address and any questions or comments that I can help resolve for you. I'm more than happy to do so. I continue to get emails from clients I haven't worked for, been paid for in 6 or 7 years, and they'll out of the blue send me an email and send me a picture and say, what do you think? So please don't hesitate to do that. My goal in this is not just personal, or professional, but also personal. I think I told all of you, my mom had a stroke and was in a wheelchair for 2.5 years. And my brother just passed away 2 weeks ago after having a heart attack and stroke and chronic kidney disease and all kinds of other issues. So this is very personal for me as well, even though I'm not personally having a qualifying disability yet.
Sorry to hear that,
Sorry
Steve.
to hear about your brother, and
our condolences.
Thank
yeah,
you. Yeah, it's been and I just moved 3 weeks ago, so it's been a long August. There's been a long July. I'm actually coming to you from Flint, Michigan instead of Hastings. So this is the first time that the DLZ operations in Flint, Michigan are coming to you live.
well, we appreciate everything you've done, and thank you for your wonderful presentation this evening. And we'll be putting our comments together still, and hopefully everyone's available on the 29th of August, and Michelle will send out that poll. And if there's no other comments or questions, we could probably motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Second, since my camera's on.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Tom and Christina, you're on mute.
Hey, I unmuted myself. I agree.
There she is. All right,
Tom,
everyone.
Tom, do
Thank
you
you.
assent to ending the meeting?
Thank you,
I think I
Michelle.
said aye. Can you hear me?
I think I heard an aye.
Thank you,
Okay,
Andy.
sorry about that.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great night.
You too.
Night.
See you guys. Bye.
Everyone, good night.
Bye.